In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you create products to sell, namely AI chatbots. I'm going to show you the process by which you sell them as well. This is very important because the process is dependent on the product that you're going to create. So there are three areas that you charge for. You charge for the conversational workflow. So this will include like the guided or open-ended. So guided is what a lot of people call decision tree. You'll basically sit there and say, do you want this? Can I get this detail off you so I can then create a proposal, whatever? But essentially you will guide them throughout the conversation. Open-ended is where you're going to have some type of knowledge base, and then that will create the conversational flow dependent on the knowledge. You will have intent and entity recognition. Intent is something like, the person sits there and says, contains the word, the sentence that they sent over contains the word like order status. That is an intent that will then go over to the workflow for order status. Entity is a variable that will be in there. So you'll sit and say, can I have your email? That is then it will strip the entity out of the sentence and it will then store it on a variable as you build up a persona throughout the whole conversation. Then you'll have follow-up and error handling. So like say like you can't get, the AI doesn't recognize what the person's talking about. It will then handle the error and send them over, could send them over to human support or whatever, and you'll have some prompt creation within there. The knowledge base creation, this is highly important. And this is basically 85% of all AI chatbots that get deployed get reversed, right? They get reversed because basically the knowledge base is useless. Because you have got to teach the AI unit what is called natural language processing, because it has to understand and process human language. So it has to understand the products and the services that companies sells, right? You know what I mean? Because people go onto ChatGPT and the ChatGPT does not understand your company products or services. So you have got, but you can get it to talk like a pirate because it can do that because it's got that already in there. But you have got to create the language processing for the chatbot, and you do that via data labeling. Don't sit there and just scan the website. A lot of people will just sit there and put the URL in, and that will then scrape the whole website. If you do that, that data has not been prepared for a chatbot, right? So it comes up like totally and utterly rubbish. And that is really the reason why people get rid of chatbots. This is also a big money maker for an agency, and it makes the chatbot work perfectly. But you've got to get the structured and organised information defined by key topics and categories. For example, frequently asked questions, troubleshooting, and you'll create step-by-step documentation to do it. So if someone sits there and says to the chatbot, I am stuck, my computer's broken or something, I don't know, my mobile phone is broken, right? It will then have a step-by-step, you sit there and say, well, what appears to be wrong? And you then have step-by-step documentation that you've written out. So when they sit there and say it doesn't boot, whatever, it will then go and get step-by-step documentation and show it to the person. And that is what you've got to create. Implement intent-based responses, right? Intents are what we spoke about in the conversational flows. So when you then create a knowledge base, so identify key common user intents, how do I reset my password? That is an intent. And you will then have a step-by-step document that will come up. You prepare step-by-step documentation for all commonly asked support requests. And this is how you create a knowledge base that will actually work for the AI unit. We then have integrations and workflows. These are integrations with external systems like placing an order, booking an appointment, basically retrieving data from a database, and you will use something like make.com to do this integration. So let's have a look at the actual customer acquisition flow. What will happen first of all is there'll be a research call, and this will be an initial series of calls to get stakeholder details, integration details, conversational structure, and knowledge-based details. Okay, so what you will do is you will go and get all of those, and you will then do a workflow sign-off meeting. And this is where you're going to create the conversational flows in Lucidchart or Miro, whatever, and you will use those with a proposal to get sign off. You will now commence the work, and what you'll start with is you'll do the knowledge base creation. You'll gather all documentation, including standard operating procedures, support tickets, product technical documentation, frequently asked questions, etc. You will put those into a data labeling platform like DataSaur or Labelbox, and you will then label it. That will then be used to be imported into the chatbot and AI workflow, right? So you will import the knowledge base, which will now be a JSON file, into VoiceFlow. VoiceFlow is the chatbot that I use, and you will create a connection with like Shopify, except you then do the AI workflows. This will be creating connections with like Shopify, in make.com. You could maybe have DocuSign in there, whatever. And you then set the chatbot up. You then will have a testing and sign off. You will run tests with the clients. You'll get sign off. You'll get paid. Okay. And that is basically the flow that you will use to do this. So what do we start for the AI conversational workflow? Usually use Miro or Lucidchart. If you ever watch any of my videos, I use Lucidchart all the time. So you start with intent recognition, and this detects what the user wants to achieve, e.g. book a flight, check account balance, whatever. And it will detect the intent. That will then usually be a workflow, okay? And you will charge the person per workflow. So like, which I'm going to show you later on, but that will create a workflow. You will then have entity extraction, and this is identifying key details from users' input. This is dates, locations, names, product names, etc. And these are entities. So when someone posts them within the chat, it will take the end, it will recognize, it's looking for these entities. It will take it out and it will store them. So then later on in the flow, you could use them. So you could say, what is your email address? Bang, that will then get stored in the flow. Like you store a memory as you're talking to someone, it will store it. We then have context management, maintains information from previous interactions to enable multi-turn conversation. Basically, as you're talking to someone, you can always remember what they've said throughout the conversation. We then have response generation, produces appropriate replies using predefined templates, AI generated text or API calls. We then have the error handling and fallbacks. So like basically if the AI doesn't understand something, guides users when the chatbot doesn't understand a request, could push them over to a human to actually handle the conversation. We then have the API and backend integration, connects with databases, CRMs, third-party services, which is what you'll use make.com. And what you will do is you will draw out the flow in either Lucidchart or Miro, and this is really you pitching for the work. Okay, so you will create these flows, show it over to the person, and then you will get sign off, and then they will confirm you to proceed with the work. What you first start off with is the AI conversational knowledge base creation. You can use DataSaur.ai or Labelbox. Personally, I would use DataSaur as the lead. The time you can learn DataSaur in about an hour. Labelbox is a lot more complicated because it's not just there for doing language. It does loads of stuff. It does images, and I find the lead time, the learning curve on Labelbox is a lot steeper. DataSaur, honestly, I could teach you DataSaur in half an hour. It's really very easy, so I just use DataSaur. And what you do is you import the text documents, and you are then going to go through and you're going to tag them. So you'll create intent tagging, assign labels based on user queries with their intent, e.g. book a flight, booking intent, right? So you create a little variable, booking intent, and you are then going to, because you're going to match these in VoiceFlow, okay? You have entity and annotation, right? This is identifying and labeling specific information in user inputs. Book a flight to New York on Monday, right? So you've got the location, New York, date, Monday, okay? And remember, an entity is a variable that you can lock into a persona, right? The intent is what they're intending on doing. And you basically go through the text documents and you label this. You have utterance variation labeling. This is really where your find flights in New York, NYC. You're basically looking at all the variations of what the person can say. So, you know, some people may say, I want to find flights to New York City. The person may say, I need a ticket to New York City, and you're going to try and create as many variables as possible for the same thing. And this is why you're going to label shed loads of support tickets, because it will have all the variations of the same utterance in there. An utterance is what someone has said. You have a term called last utterance, which will always be the last thing that the person said. But you need to get all these variations in there. So then the AI unit knows, hey, like the AI unit could have like 1,000 different variations of the same thing. So it knows, hey, if someone says this, bang, it means this. It means the same thing. Do you see what I mean? We then have sentiment annotation. And this is looking, is it positive, negative, neutral for customer support bots? So then an AI bot knows if someone says something and it's positive, they're getting it right. If it says it's negative, it's getting it wrong. Do you see what I mean? We then have named entity recognition, and this is so important. This is identifying specific categories such as names, dates, and locations and brands. So it could be Apple stock, price today. The company is Apple, right? The time, today. You've also got location in there, but this is really teaching the person. Say like you were to go and teach someone how to do sales, you would teach them about the product names, and this is named entity recognition. So then they know all the product names, whatever. We then have intent ambiguity and correction, and this is looking at detecting incorrectly labeled intents and refining them based on context. So if someone says something wrong, it's like, okay, this is a the intent is wrong. The AI unit can correct them. But this is really important, and this is also where the big money is in bots. I watch loads of people's videos, and most people just say scan the outside of the website and just harvest that in. No, that will not work, and that is not where the money is. The money is in the knowledge-based creation. What we're then going to do is we're going to go over to make.com or something like nan.io, and we are going to create the automations, right? And this is basically the integration so that the voice bot, the chatbot, can talk to various systems. So it can talk to Shopify, and it can get data from them, etc. So we have a visual workflow builder, which is drag and drop within make.com to design the workflows. We have pre-built integrations. So most of these things are integrated with 1,500 plus apps like Slack, Google Sheets, HubSpot, Shopify, whatever. We have the API, and this is either via API or webhook. So the integration is pre-done. You do not have to go and do this. You've got all the API in there, you've got the custom triggers, etc. Bang. You don't have to go and do any coding. You just go in there and do it. We've got data transformation, so you can modify formats, structured data before passing it to another app. So what you can do is you can sit there and say, right, look, we've got something coming in. We've got some data coming in from Google Sheets, right? Whatever. Can you transform this? So we could transform it using Claude or Perplexity, whatever. So we sit there and say, take this data, which is a big chunk of text, put it into bullet points, and then output the bullet points to, say, VoiceFlow or an email. You can schedule real-time and triggers, automates workflows based on schedules or real-time events, and you've got multi-step automated sequences. So you can have a complex workflow with multiple steps and parallel actions. So what you could do is you could have it so that someone comes in via VoiceFlow to become a customer, and they confirm becoming a customer. It will then build them in Stripe, send a document via DocuSign for a legal document to get them onboarded, and it will then set up the project in, say, Monday.com and create a Slack channel all in one go, and that will just come straight from the bot in there. Do you see what I mean? And you can do that using make.com or nan.io. Right, so we then go to the workflow, and we're then going to use this is the actual chatbot itself. This is the conversational side, right? We're going to use VoiceFlow or Tito, whatever. I personally use VoiceFlow. We have intent recognition, right? So we're basically going to start these chatbots, right? And it starts with an intent. It's like book a flight, right? So that is the intent recognition, and we will have a conversational workflow for book a flight. And this will help. This basically makes sure that like it then locks them into book a flight, right? We then have the entity extraction. This will detect and extract key details from them, like name, date, location, whatever. So say you were trying to book a flight, you're going to need their name, you need their location, so you can locate the airport, or like the product name. Say you're selling technical products, you've got to know, like you want an Apple laptop, whatever, and you then start creating all of these variables that you're going to extract. Here we've got the example: book a flight to New York on Monday. Location, that is an entity. New York, date, Monday, again, another entity. Conversation and dialogue management. We manage the chatbot guides through different scenarios. And these are basically workflows that we're going to send them through. We include multi-turn conversations, context switching, and fallback handling. So say the a fallback handle is it doesn't understand something, it will fall back to usually push them to a human operator. We have the context and memory management. Enables the bot to remember past interactions within a session or across sessions. Example: I want to book a hotel. The chatbot will remember the location mentioned earlier, because always remember and in voice flow it's called VF memory. You've always got to remember, like as you're talking to someone, you can remember what they said earlier, and your chatbot has to do this as well. So we then have response generation and personalization, determine how the chatbot replies, and it could either use the knowledge base which you've created, or it could create a personalized response based on the user data that's happened throughout the flow. With it, obviously, we have error handling and fallbacks. You're going to have to create all the error handling. How do you handle the errors, right? And then how do you pass them on to a human agent? So what I want to do here, this is a really good little example of how you can sell an e-commerce order statement package. Right, you have the conversation. This is just for order status. So say someone, and this is really good if you want to set this up, because what you do is you sit there and you sell an order status. You will then sell them a load of other packages. So say you just want to make a couple of £100 a day doing chatbots, whatever. Say you want to make 500 a day, right? What you'll do is you create order status chatbots, but you then have loads of other products, whatever. You can just sell these on Upwork or People Per Hour. So you have a conversational workflow for order status. The intent is order status, right? You then create the intent and entity recognition. So the entity recognition in that is probably going to be the order number, right? And the email. So you'll have the chatbots and say, can I have your order number and email? And those are entities that you'll store as a variable. You will then send those using an integration with make.com to say Shopify. But you will also have a follow-up and an error handling. So a follow-up and error handling is they don't submit a order status which is valid. And you'll also create prompts for this. And these are really easy to do. You create the workflow just for 50, the knowledge base creation for 50, and the integration for 50. That is 150. This is an hour's work, right? We then move up. Sorry. You've also got to maybe have to create a document, create a step-by-step document detailing the order status process and one troubleshooting it. And you would charge like 150 for that. That'd be a little bit more unless if they've already got one. You will just go in and clean it up, quickly dump it into DataSaur, import it. You then have the integration. This is a standard integration with make.com, which will be get order ID. So the conversation will really start off like this. Person will sit there and say, I would like to check my order status. That is the intent. You will then push them into a workflow for order status. You'll then sit there and say, can I have your order ID? That is an entity recognition, right? The order ID is an entity. You will store that in a entity, which is just like a variable. That is your order ID. You will then send the order ID to Shopify using make.com, and it will return the order status. But what you have when you do these, this is a very simple order status. When you sell this into a company, they will then sit there and say, can you also do refund status, user and password retrieval, order tracking? So you end up with about 600 of work, and that is a day's work, right? That, you know what I mean? And you will make this for them in a day. So they'll have a little chat bot, and the chat will say, can I help you with order status, refund status, user password retrieval, or order tracking, right? Just like that. So that's got like 4 buttons there, right? And then when they click on one of the buttons, it will take them to a workflow. When they are on that workflow, it will then deal with them. So like with the refund status, again, it will get the ID. With the user and password retrieval, it will get the user and password via email. It will then send that to Shopify via make.com, which will then send it to reset it via a standard integration with Shopify. Do you kind of see what I mean? You do all of those for 150, you get 600 for the whole lot. If you're sat there at home doing it, it's quite good money. But you then have other packages. So like when you do small chatbot e-commerce, when you do chatbot e-commerce, you can have small e-commerce. You'll get about 600 to 700 for that. You have the medium e-commerce, which will be 5,000, of which you will do a lot bigger with the knowledge bases, because you're going to have product recommendations, etc. in there. Then you've got the large e-commerce, which is about 15 grand, because you're going to have massive work doing the databases again on there. So let's have a look at what is a technical support chatbot. Right, we start off again with the conversation workflow, intent, technical support. Again, intent and entity recognition. So we've got the intent, technical support to recognize. We're then going to have the entity recognition, which is going to be a lot more substantial, okay, because you've got to troubleshoot. So but for this conversational workflow, I'll only charge like 150, because you just have follow-up question. The actual workflow is not the big thing. The big thing is going to be the knowledge base creation, and this is where you are going to have to take all of their knowledge base from the technical side, right? And you are going to have to define key topics to create intents. For example, server down, trouble booting up. These are intents, okay? But these are key topics, and they then become intents, right? You're then going to create step-by-step documentation for each intent. For example, step-by-step process for restarting a server, right? Because when they then sit there and say server down, and you'll create all the variants on the server down. My server doesn't work. My server's gone down. My servers, I can't access my server. They are variants on the intent. So you basically are going to create all of those, and you're going to create the documentation. And then you then ask the client how many support tickets they have. And this is where you make the big money. You put all the text documents into DataSaur or label box, and you start to label them. You will also label the sentiment while doing it, right? The step-by-step documents charge 150. Then you will charge 250 per ticket for the support tickets. You will give 150 to that for a data labeler, or what's called data annotation. Typically go and get students who are studying this topic at university. Do not go cheap on this. Do not go and get a load of people from a foreign country, pay them 25, whatever, 50, whatever for the data labeling. It will not work. They have got to have domain knowledge. This is why students are really good, because it's going to take them about 5 minutes to do each ticket, right? So on average, they'll do like 10 tickets an hour. They'll get 15 per hour. This is skilled work. This is not cheap labor, but you will make one for each ticket you do. So if you do 5,000 tickets, that's 5 grand. You know what I mean? The data labelers have all made good money out of it. You've made good money. And this will then create you a technical support chatbot. You then integrate this with make.com. Obviously, you've got to have a fallback, get human assistance, and create tickets to send to support desk. That's just a standard flow for 50, unless it's a custom integration, and you're going to have to get the customer to assess on there. Let's have a look at lead generation chatbots. Very, very popular, very easy to sell. The conversational workflow is welcome message. You are then going to have qualifying questions, budget range, specific needs. You're then going to collect contact information. So again, you will get entities of which you will store into a variable. So you say, what's your name, your email address. You can then create personalized responses, quote, product suggestion, etc. And for the creation of this, like the workflow, charge 500, testing 100. Then you've then got the knowledge-based creation. Again, just get all the product knowledge, service documentation, create pages for each product or service, label documents, charge 150 for each product or service document. Okay, this is not technical support. This is what you are doing for the leads. Again, with the integration, you have standard integrations to make.com, connect to Calendly, whatever, and you connect to a support desk and email CRM. These are standard integrations, just charge 50 from each one. So in the end, you kind of walk away probably about 1,000 for each lead generation bot, but these are really easy to do. This is one day's work. And this is basically how you create chatbot products and the process by which you sell them. Okay.